radio listeners, I want to say thank you for listening and tuning in. I want to say TV viewers, thank you for watching Facebook Live. Thank you for taking the time this morning. And in the days to come, YouTube viewers, thank you for viewing. And social media, thank you for tuning in. I want to tell you the vision at Christ Point Church, we are real people. We're living real lives, and we're serving a real God, and we want to say welcome home. We are Christ Point Church. We're one church in 2 locations, and we're in several media outlets, and we want to say welcome home. It's good to have you with us. Rocky Round 3. Cue that music, Gwen. Rocky Round 3. There it is. Now, I'm telling you. Week 3. This is the Eye of the Tiger series. I'm telling you, Eye of the Tiger sermon, week 3. I'm just going to kind of lay it out here for you. Rocky Round 3. As we kind of key in on Rocky Round 3, I want to introduce you to contender number 11. Now, contender number 11, this guy. Rocky has defended his title for 10 fights. I don't know if you watch Rocky. I think I dig it, But he's defended his title 10 fights. He's kind of getting worn out. He's ready to retire. Number 11 comes along. Man, this guy's wanting to fight. He comes along. He's introduced in Rocky number 3 as Clubber Lang. Now we know this guy's Mr. T. Mr. T, I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. T's a good guy, but he's not playing a good guy in Rocky. Mr. T's a good guy. And notice that he says that about the fight with Rocky. This is what he says. He wants to inflict pain. Now, we're just jumping right in this morning. He wants to inflict pain. He goes, pain. I want to inflict pain. I want to hurt on pain. If you'll notice, that's the way he does. He kind of talks about pain. And then he wants to torture him. He said, I want to torture him. I want pain. I want him to feel pain. I want to torture him. 3 things he says. He wants to inflict pain. He wants to torture him. I want to crucify him. I want to crucify him. Now, I want to tell you, we jumped back into John chapter 10, verse 10, a few weeks back. And John chapter 10, verse 10, basically says that the devil comes but for to kill, to steal, and to destroy. Now, that's a pretty good scripture to memorize. Because I'm going to tell you, anytime that you look around and there's something going on in your life that looks like it's not favorable, it's probably going to fall into this category of John chapter 10, verse 10. Kill, steal, destroy. But I want to tell you a truth right now concerning the devil. Now, in Rocky chapter 3, our Mr. T is kind of going to take the role of the devil. If you look, we're going to find some similarities with how the devil wants to attack us in our lives. The devil wants you to succeed. Now, wait a minute. I don't know if you said that right. Pastor, you didn't read your notes right. Yeah, I did. The devil wants you to succeed, but he wants you to fail in the process. So I'm going to break that down and tell you a little bit how it goes. He wants you to succeed, but he wants you to fail in the process. Let's look at Luke chapter 4, verse 13. And when the devil had ended his temptation of Jesus in the wilderness, he departed from him until an opportune time. Now, I think what's really key to note that I'm going to read it in Rocky version. And when the devil had ended round 1, he departed until he could find an opportune time in round 4 and 5. That's pretty much what this says. He waits for an opportune moment to inflict pain. That's kind of what, and if you notice, I don't get it, the facial expressions. Just try it. Try to say pain without doing that. You just can't, do it in that growl. Pain, you just got to you wrinkle up your face in order to do it. I thought it's pretty cool. But he waits for the opportune moment to inflict pain. Now, let me show you what I mean by the devil wants you to succeed, but he wants you to fail in the process. Let me show you what this means. I climbed the corporate ladder for 25 to 30 years of my life. Man, I got to the top. I lost my children and 2 marriages along the way. See what I mean? He wants you to succeed, but he wants you to fail along the way. That he wants you to, he'll make sure that you succeed in one thing if you can fail in the greater thing. He wants us to fail in the greater thing. So, he will look for opportune moments to inflict pain. He will look for opportune moments to torture our minds. Now, if he can inflict pain, then we're focusing on the pain. Because when you get pain, I'm going to be honest with you, like I told you a few weeks back, I have had a kidney stone in my life. And I've had 2 children, and kidney stones way worse than giving birth to me. So I know what it was like. There's no functioning during that time. It's not like, oh, I hurt my foot, let's go on to work. You know, it's like, oh, I have a kidney stone. I'm going to lay on this cold tile floor. I'm going to lay on that hot rag. I'm going to lay out in the grass and see if the wet grass don't help. I'm going to moan and cry, and my wife's going to drive 110 thinking I'm having a heart attack to the hospital. So, and by the way, thank you, Cookeville Regional, for all the bills that you're sending me now. Thank you. He will look for opportune moments to torture our minds. If we get the pain on our minds, then the pain to get our attention off something else, and then he will torture our minds. Let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. He has blinded their minds. He blinds the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light. Studies show, now let me just break this down. Studies show that when people are exposed to long-term darkness, if they are placed in total darkness, especially infants when their eyesight is developing, infants will be blind for life. If they're exposed for lengths of time, they tested that on infant monkeys, and they were blind for life. There are some animals that are born in caves that don't even have eyes. People will become blind. Their eyesight is affected from long-term exposure to darkness. Studies also show that solitary confinement for prisoners will render less lasting psychological effects. So when a prisoner has been put in solitary confinement, they put him in a hole. Put him in the hole, put him in there. It just about is a schizophrenic type situation. Studies also show that 2 researchers in the 60s, these guys lived in the 60s, it was a man and a woman, researchers, they were researchers, they spent several months in 2 separate caves. One in one cave, they didn't even collaborate with one another. One went in one cave, one went into another cave. They said without any indication of time, sun rising, sun setting, one stayed for 3.5 months, thought that they were in there for 2 weeks. One stayed for 6 months, thought he was in there for a little over a month and a half. So the thing is they stayed separate, they stayed excluded, they stayed for months, and they were on the brink of insanity. After a few months in solitary seclusion in a cave with no light other than they had flashlights, I'm assuming, and lanterns and that kind of thing. They actually had to wear dark glasses for weeks and weeks and weeks until their eyes could adapt to the sunlight. They were on the brink of insanity. Let me just break this down. Remove the light of Christ, and darkness will torture our minds. If we just remove the light of Christ, and we see this all over the world today. Remove the light of Christ. Jesus says, I'm the light of the world. Remove the light of Christ, and darkness will torture people's minds. I'm telling you. The devil looks for opportunities to inflict pain. The devil looks for opportunities to torture our mind. And the devil looks for opportunities to crucify our will. See, when Jesus was crucified, the darkness drove almost every believer into hiding. And the ones that it didn't drive into hiding, it drove into a state of panic. And the ones that didn't go into a hiding and a state of panic went to totally and completely fell away from the Lord completely. So when Jesus was crucified, then the will of man just crumbled. The will of the people around him just crumbled. If the devil can steal our will and crush our desires, then he has a better chance of leading us into darkness. And let me tell you, once you get led into darkness, you can't get out. You put somebody in a dark room, there's no way the person can get out if it's a dark maze and there's no doors. You have to actually find the doors and open the doors. Without someone with light, with a flashlight that can help you find the door, you're never going to find it. Once we're led into the darkness, we can't find our way out of the darkness. The light of the world has to come in and find that way for us. So once we're in the darkness, Jesus is the only one that can get us out of the darkness. So that's just how it lays out there. We're not going to mumble around. We're not going to stumble around. We're not going to bump into somebody and say, oops, I didn't know you were here. So, hey, let's try to find our way out together. We can't even get together as a group and figure it out. I went through the Escape in the Darkness, our escape room. If it had been up to me, I'd have still been in there. If it hadn't been for people with me, I was totally lost. I was in another world trying to figure. My mind was going too deep. I'm thinking, here's the Bible, the clue's in the Word. I'm just flipping. And so the whole time she said, the clue is not in the Word. It's in the Word. It's in the Word. You didn't tell me it's in the Word. It's in the Word. I was just trying to figure out where in the Bible it was going to tell us how to get out of there. But see, if the devil can steal our will and crush our desires, he can lead us into the darkness. Once he leads us into the darkness, we're there. Without the Lord, we're not getting out. So let me show you what happens in a world without Jesus. Let me show you what happens in Luke chapter 23, verses 44 and 45. This is what happens in a world without Jesus. It was now about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. If you're good with math, I'm pretty decent. That's 3 hours. While the sun's light faded and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. While the sun's light faded. Now, darkness was over the whole land. And when you break down the meaning of the word whole, that means everything. So, darkness was over everything. And then the physical sun that we see, the light of that failed. So I'm going to tell you, it was not like the clouds came out. It was not like there was just a dreariness like a Tennessee winter. It wasn't like that. What it was like was there was no light coming from anywhere. The sun's light failed. Remove Jesus, and we're not going to be able to find the eye of the tiger. If we remove the light, then we can't find the eye of the tiger. See, let's look at the fight. Let's look at the fight. Rocky takes the fight with Mr. T. I want to jump back on the fight. Now, we see how the devil comes in, wants to inflict pain, and wants to torture, and wants to crucify. You know, this is what the devil, it's his job, man. It's his job, and he's good at it. Don't think that we're going to be better at his job or defending him against his job without the Lord than he is, because we're not. So now let's jump back onto the fight in Rocky. Rocky takes this fight with Mr. T. I will take this fight. Come on, Mick, let's take. In the process, Mick, his manager, he has a heart attack, he gets pushed down, and he dies. So all of a sudden, we got no manager. Rocky loses his want to. He gets knocked down in the second or third round. He just stays down. He loses his eye of the tiger. Now, I want to compare that to our hunger. What do we do when our world has been rocked? What do we do when our corner has been altered? We like our corner the way it is. I like my corner. Here's me and my family. And I got the grandparents and the in-laws. And what happens when the corner gets rocked? What happens when the corner gets out of alignment? What happens when one of those people, something happens to them? What happens when something happens? What happens when the corner gets rocked off of its foundation? What happens when it seems like our manager's just silent? Sometimes it seems like we're just in a place to where we can't even hear what the manager's saying. What happens? See, why don't everybody serve the Lord? That's the question I think that I've been asked before. Why don't everybody want to serve the Lord? Why don't everybody enjoy a life that's forgiven? Why don't everybody enjoy a victory of living for the Lord? It's the same reason everybody don't jump in the ring with a heavyweight champion of the world, because it ain't easy. That's why. It's rewarding, but it's not easy. See, Jesus speaking to the church at Ephesus. What do we do when these things are gone? What do we do when our corner's been altered? What do we do when our manager is silent? Jesus speaking to the church of Ephesus in Revelation chapter 2. What do we do? How did we lose our fight? What happens when we lose the eye of the tiger? He says, you've worked hard. You've worked hard. Now, I'm going to tell you, I know what it's like to have people around me that work hard. You worked hard. Good job. You've worked hard. You know, you've worked hard doing good things. Good job. You've done good things. Yesterday, man alive, there was a bunch of people working hard and doing good things. And the reward is going to be this afternoon, I can assure you. The passion and the want to. See, but this is what he says to that church at Ephesus. But, you've lost your first love. You've lost that eye of the tiger. I'm sorry, your church, you have lost the eye of the tiger. See, notice, Rocky lost that eye of the tiger. In that Rocky 3, he's all like cut and buff, and I mean, he's just not big anymore. He's like GQ big. This dude looks good. He's all cut, and he's all looking all sharp, and he's on the beach, and he's running with Apollo Creed comes in the picture, says, man, we got to get you back in here. You lost that fight for the wrong reasons. I'm going to help you. So let's get out here and let me help you win this fight. And they're on the beach, they're running, they're trying to get some agility and some speed, and he just quits. See, his wife wanted it for him. His wife saying, come on, Rocky, come on. You got polished, and his brother-in-law's like, yeah. And everybody's wanting him to do this. Rocky, we want you to do this. His wife wants him to fight. His brother-in-law wants him to fight. Apollo Creed wants him back in the ring. His new management wants him back on the team. But they all wanted him back in the fight. But see, he had lost his first love. He had lost his first love. I just don't want it. He told Adrian, he said, I don't want this anymore. I just don't want this anymore. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to kind of lay this out there for you. It doesn't matter how badly you want it for someone. It doesn't matter how bad you want them to quit drinking. It doesn't matter how bad you want them to get off drugs. It don't matter how much you want them to be at church with you, how you give their heart to the Lord. It doesn't matter how much you want them to quit gambling or whatever they're doing. If they don't want it for themselves, it ain't going to work. And I'm going to tell you how. I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. There was a person pulled up in my driveway in 2014, I believe it was. Drunk, gosh, couldn't stand up, and pulled up in my driveway. And it was a woman, and they didn't know where else to go. It was all they could, and all the woman could do was cry and talk about how the Lord hated her. So I'm looking at Tina over the car. I'm like, you get her attention, I'm cutting this thing off. So she got her attention. I put that thing in park, got the key. I'm thinking, so far, so good. So I took the bottle of liquor, and I'm like, hey, let me see that. So I dumped it out. The woman couldn't even talk. She was so drunk. What do? The only outlet that I knew, I called Clean Hearts. I called Steve Colquitt. And I'm like, hey, Steve, we got an issue here. We've got a lady and blah, 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 and this and that. And this is what he told me. He's not just told me this once. He has told me this numerous times when I've called them to see about helping somebody. If they don't come to me, if they don't want it for themselves, if they don't want it for themselves more than everybody else wants it, don't waste my time and don't waste your time. In other words, love them, do whatever, sit and rub them on their head till they fall asleep, but you ain't going to get them to change unless they want to change. So, in other words, I love you, my brother, but it ain't working unless they want it. It don't get, like I said, snot and tears don't make salvation. So sometimes we just got to get to a point to where we want more than what we're getting. And I want to back up, and I want to say right now, this lady has messaged Tina. She lives in a different state now, and she has been totally clean, wonderful, serving the Lord. Man, look what God can do. Look what God can do. But on that day, she wasn't even asking. I was the one asking. So it wasn't good enough. I couldn't be the one asking. It had to be her. So I don't want you to think that Steve is the awful person, but it's the cold, hard truth. I'm going to tell you, I've got to want it for me more than everybody else wants it for me. So what do we do when we're just not as excited as we once were about our salvation? I've had people sit down with me, and they've said, I'm just not, that excitement, that fire's not there anymore. What do I do? I'm not as excited as I once was. Sam is in Smithfield this morning. Sam will be preaching a sermon this morning. Sam and I sat down just about 6, 8, I don't remember how many months ago, and he said, I was in a place to where I needed energy. I needed excitement back in my life for what God had laid on my heart. I didn't have that want to. Let's just go out and just charge. He said I was losing that. What do we do when we're just not as excited as we once were about our salvation? Let me tell you, first of all, everybody hits the wall. Everybody hits the wall. Everybody. I don't care who you are, and I'm comparing this to a race. Now, believe it or not, I used to do a lot of these races. It's an imaginary wall, and for some people it's thicker, and for some people it's less or more. It's an imaginary wall to where you say, I can't go on. I can't go on. I am spent. I'm done. I have no more energy. My legs feel like they're 500 pounds apiece. I can't move. Every time I take a step, my heart's beating in my brain. I'm just about to fall over. I can't get enough breath in my body. It's called the wall. And if we push through on the other side of the wall, we get our second wind. So that's where we get and when we get our second wind, we get a rhythm. And then all of a sudden, it just gets easier. It's still tough, but it gets a rhythm and it's manageable. See, everybody hits the wall. And the thing that we can't do is quit when we hit the wall. Now, I've got a friend of mine. She's young. She's my son's age. And we were in a race one time, and we had to go down, and we had to turn in to the park for about a mile, and we came back out. I called up to her, and she was like almost to the finish line. I'm like, man, she's been working hard at this thing. So I just barely beat her. And I'm thinking, I've just never known her to really be into this at all. And I asked her daddy, and I said, wow, she just was running. He said she'd cut the whole mile off. She didn't even go into the park. That's how she don't even need a medal. So you can't bypass steps. You can't quit when it gets tough, and you can't say, well, that looks like the tough section, which it was, and I'm not going down the tough section. I'll just pass the tough section. See, we can't do that. Everybody hits the wall. Expect it. It's coming. You know what? There gets a point to where, Pastor, you just get up there. You're just excited all the time. Well, there was times early on where I hit the wall. I wasn't so excited. You know what? Now I have more of a rhythm, and I'm excited all the time. Number 2, serving the Lord, the Christian walk. Paul compares it to a physical race. Let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 24 through 26. He compares this to a race. Do you not know that in a race, see, they didn't have baseball back then. They didn't have football. They had racing. They had Olympics. They had sports. Do you not know that in a race all runners run, but only one receives a prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control, and in all things they do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air. So this is what Paul says. Everybody's running the same race. Everybody's running the same race. Because I'm going to tell you something. I once read, somebody had put a note in a running magazine, said, what if I finish last? And then the response was, number 1, you probably won't. And number 2, if you do, you're ahead of everybody sitting on the couch. So I'm the couch sitter now. I'm not the runner anymore. So I'm the couch sitter. So in other words, you're probably ahead of 900,000 other people. But everybody, this is what I do remember. Everybody at the starting line, everybody's equal at that point. Nobody's ahead of anybody else. Everybody runs the same race. That's what Paul says. Everybody runs the same race. Run your race. Remember, know your role in the corner. Run your race and don't worry about somebody else's race. Follow the course and don't run aimlessly or box at the air. So what he's saying is don't run, follow the course. Once we were running a race, and this young boy, man, I'll lay it out for you. Races are laid out like this. They either paint on the ground, which that one, it's there forever. They either paint on the ground to tell you to turn here, or they'll put arrows, or they'll put somebody standing there saying go that way. So when you're running, you've got to either watch for the arrows that are posted, or you got to watch for the paint. So this one boy's about 15. He runs about a half a mile down the street. Everybody's turned right where the arrow said turn right. He ran all the way back. So he ran about a half a mile too far, ran about half a mile back, gets on track, and still beats everybody. 15 years old. I mean, it's like, I hate you. And it's sucking all the air I can suck, and I don't like that kid at all. But he passed me, by the way, twice. It's pretty bad when you get twice by the same guy. But I'm, Paul is saying, run the race that is set out before us. Everybody runs the same race. Everybody runs the race that is at their pace, and follow the course that's been set out before us. If we don't follow the course, we're going to get off track. Don't box at the air, because let me tell you what boxing at the air does. With every swing that we don't connect with is energy that we could be using in the end rounds. Every swing is important. You can't just swing 300 times in the first round and expect to have 300 swings in the 15th round. It's not like that. Run the race that's set before us. Don't waste valuable energy swinging at the wind. Don't swing at things that don't matter. Don't run races that don't matter. Don't do those things. See, it's important to note right here that when we take our eyes off the course, then we're going, if your eye's not on the course, then you're going to focus on something else. Whatever it is, you're going to focus on something else. It may be I'm not focusing on anything except I'm just daydreaming. That's focusing on something. If our eye is off the course, then we're going to focus on something else, and I call them obstacles. Obstacles can be potholes. I see this big pothole. I don't want to turn my ankle. I don't want to step in it. I don't want to get my feet wet. I'm so concerned about the pothole that I missed the sign that says turn right here. So you know what? Everybody turned except me. I just kept going straight. See, I was too focused on the pothole. Obstacles can be steep hills. They'll wear you down. Obstacles can be inclement weather. You know what? It's tough when rain's falling in your eyes. You're still racing a race. Hey, guys, you were doing this, and you stopped on us, and you watched us, and I appreciate it. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time with us. I pray that you enjoyed the service today. Let me take this opportunity to invite you out personally. We're located on the square in Sparta. Our service times are at 9 and 11 every Sunday morning. We'll meet you at the door with a hug. We'll meet you at the door with some coffee ready and some donuts if you want. And let me just take a real quick minute to invite you over to our Smithville campus. For those of you who can't drive over to Sparta, drive over to Smithville, 11 o'clock for now, at 614 Murphy Street in Smithville, Tennessee. So one of our campuses, Christ Point Church, we're real people, we're living real lives, and we're serving a real God. Welcome home.